Hello and welcome back to TED Talks Truth and Reality about how selfism leads to wrong choices. Example, the riots going on in Ferguson and in the other contaminated, closed-minded, brainwashed communities across America. I've discussed selfism at length in some of my other discussions, and I don't want to take up my time now trying to repeat it, because if I strike a chord with you, please go back and watch the other discussions and you'll see the trail I've left to get to this point to make the claims I'm going to make tonight in this video. Last Sunday I spoke of how easy it was to do the right thing at the right time. I tried to explain how it was a conscious choice that was aided by a spiritual lightning or a spiritual truth that shines on your situation, and you're able to quickly filter the circumstances through your heart and your mind and come up with the right good choice. And that choice was based on the universal principles of the Creator, which was do no harm. Do no harm to yourself, do no harm to others. And this is where it gets confusing, because those people who are unable to attach this truth to their decision-making process becomes sort of captured in that physical realm, and the choices they think they're making as free individuals are really conditioned reflexes, just like one of Pavlov's dogs. They have been hit since the day they were born by the circumstances and the conditioning and the mentors and the experiences that they encounter in the course of going from birth to death. I've tried to explain that each individual is so uniquely made in the physical world, and this is the reason why there's absolute scientific proof that each person is physically different than anyone who has ever lived or will live. And that's a given fact, one of the few things that is solid in our world. Now, I've discussed how the spiritual world to some is there, and to those who only live in this physical world, they can't see anything else, so all their choices are self-centered, self-righteous, and the disease selfism is something that I've explained has been an inherent, innate physical trait when you live in that physical world. You can't help but be self-centered, and you operate in the self-preservation mode, and all your decisions are made from a selfish point of view. That I try to explain to you, and until you grasp that, it's going to be difficult for you to understand that this spiritual light helps you see clear, see better, and add a little bit of respect and concern and balance to the choices you have to make going forward. Those things that have occurred up until today, as I've explained, have happened in the only way they could have, by your decisions and by the decisions of all those people that affect and operate in your life. I've tried to explain how the president, by making wrong, poor decisions, has affected society to the point where we don't know up, down, sideways. The rules and the regulations are coming so quickly and so rapidly, and they keep changing that even the Congress didn't know they had voted for a bill. As Pelosi said, we won't know what's in it until we read it, and after we pass it, we'll read it. Now we're finding out that you cannot trust anyone in politics these days until they prove through a track record that they keep their word. Now, our president, his track record for the last 6 years is unexplainable. You can't understand. Just like his past, which was questionable, his decisions are questionable. You hear and say that he is a mystery man who operates from an ideal philosophy, a philosophy that was programmed into him by all those people in the socialist, progressive, liberal view that they believe, and they are an elite group. Believe me, trust me, they are the ones that are the wealthy, elite people who believe their choices are better for you than yours are yourself. This is what it used to be like, and it used to be that way before the Civil War. And the black community should realize that they have been given an opportunity that they choose themselves. Now, I explained in one of my previous talks about the black culture that when I was 9, 10, and 11, I had a 103-year-old black man, Mr. Beebe, who I talked to all the day, and I write extensively about him in my book, Slow Down and Love, that I want you to download free. Just go to tedtorok.com, and it'll tell you how to get the book free. And it's on self-enlightenment, and that's what I'm trying to get the black community to realize. Just as Mr. Beebe said back in 1951 and 52, he said that he is really, and he was a slave too. He was 13 or 14 years old, and he learned how to read and was an extensive, well-educated, self-educated individual. And he used to tell me, and he said this, the only thing they can ever take away from you is your education. And he's so right, because I've had a college education, and I've had an education of hard knocks. I explained that I made some stupid mistakes and ended up doing 23 months in jail. And during that period, I met many black young men, as well as some of the old timers who've been in there for a long time, and they all gave me a sort of the same general feeling that, and now this was back in 1979, that the reason the black people don't go after education is they don't want to. And Mr. Beebe said that was going to be the thing that he is happy is there for the black community. This was before civil rights, that if a person got a good education, they sort of steered their life through a better set of circumstances and were able to make better choices for themselves, enlightened choices. Anything that they didn't know, they could find out if they were educated. However, what's happened is so many people in the black community never lived Mr. Beebe's dream, and they sure don't live Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream, that everyone will be judged on the character in their hearts, not by the color of their skins. Now, we're seeing these riots, and the thing that is happening is the black community is judging the white community by the color of their skin. They throw in everybody in the same basket, saying, and they're making such emphatic statements. I mean, this situation in Ferguson, it's so clear. Cause and effect is something I explain a lot in my book, and I have talked about it in my previous discussions. Choices that you've made in your past lead you to the point where you are. Now, if you continue to make wrong decisions, you might just be like Michael Brown. He made a stupid decision to get stoned. He made a stupid decision to go in and rob a little guy and have it caught on tape. He made the stupidest decision walking down the middle of the street in front of a police car, knowing that he just robbed something. It was as if he was tempting fate, that he was invincible. So many of our young kids on drugs believe that they're invulnerable to certain circumstances. And I'm telling you, because I've smoked a lot of pot in my younger days, and I've done other drugs, and I make my decisions from experience. I know it robs you of that moment in time where you could have made better decisions. Let me put it that way. Now, if you're locked up at home and you're doing it in your own castle, that's different. But I know the people that go out and function in the world, drugged, stoned, drunk, addicted to their own self-righteousness, as many in politics are. Their arrogance has gotten to the point where they believe they're above the law, and they want everyone else to follow the law. Now, getting back to the Ferguson situation, the thing that surprises me, I honestly support the point of view that many in the black community has, that they have been slighted over the years, but not to the degree that some blindly and unconsciously preach. Reverend Al and Reverend Jesse, who are supposed to be men of God-fearing, Christ-following beliefs, you never hear them talk about respect, love self, love God, love others. They're always talking about division, and they're driving a deeper wedge between the white and black community by not stepping up and talking about something like, I think, Jonathan Gentry, a minister in Ferguson, got up and said, it's up to the black community to change itself. It has to change each individual. It has to take personal responsibility, just like every white person should, and we don't. We have our addictions and our things, and we look at everything from our perspective. And in previous discussions, I mentioned to you that no two people see the same thing with the same general perspective. And between the black community and the white community, it's absolutely impossible to see the same perspective. And I use this as a analogy or comparison. Now, everyone that sees that sees what they see, and I see what I see. That's your perspective. This is my perspective. Now, this is the black perspective. No white person could ever understand it completely unless they do it through love and spiritual awareness. From the physical world, the black community is going to see nothing but the blackness that they've been brought up to believe that that's all they are. They're not. They're a part of a greater community. And the other side, the white people, they only see their perspective. And until there's a meeting of the minds, there's going to be this confusion and separation. And as long as we live in that physical realm, it'll never be understood. You need to bring in what many ministers and many of the wiser black leaders have said. We need to look to our younger people to come up with the solutions of the time, because my age group doesn't understand what's going on. I just can't understand how any community could foster and foment the disrespect that the black rappers and black athletes who should be there in Ferguson stopping what's going on, and instead of rapping, man, let me kill some white crackers in their sleep. It's absolutely ridiculous to expect the world to come together when the leaders of the black community don't realize that they could help. They could show through example. I know many of the black athletes. I played with professional football with black athletes and their friends. I just had a 49th reunion with many of them. And it was hard for them to understand, because they came from families and they had educations, and they came from a mother and a father situation, or at least someone in that family driving them to get a good education. And I sat with one of them who's a minister, and we didn't realize that we grew up less than 40 miles apart. And here he was a big black man, and I was a big white man, and both of us over 300 pounds. And we're talking about the only way peace and understanding and harmony can come to any conflict, especially between the races, is through the understanding of Jesus' golden rule. Now, I don't want to say that, because you're this religion or that religion, you have to believe the Western philosophy, but this is a philosophy that's been repeated throughout many religions, that respect for self and respect for the environment and others, and respect for the Creator, whatever you want to call it. And it isn't a he. Now, I want you guys to know that, and you need to examine some of the belief systems you have when you say it's a he, because that's the problem, because someone else sees it this way, someone else sees it that way. I believe the Creator is more than a gender. I believe it is all-encompassing, both genders, both polarities of right and wrong. It adds the balance there that's necessary to understand the extremes of the physical world and the spiritual world. The Creator brings you and gave you inalienable rights for life. You're alive. Liberty. You're always free to pick your own way through life, especially here in America, as long as more and more regulations don't steep on top of us, and as they have been, they rob more freedom and imagination and creativity and economic growth than anything else that I know. So, in closing, I want to make sure that you're beginning to understand these are the things we're going to discuss further on as we get into the book Slow Down in Love. And Volume 1 is Self-Enlightenment, and it's about the 35 years of my life that I lived from zero to the day I got out of incarceration and received so-called freedom from a barred environment, only to find out that each of us encloses ourselves with our own limitations. And I will try to get you to understand it's not necessary to have any anchors to the past, other than a snapshot and a memory and a smile of the good times. And the bad times were not real. They were created by the illusions that you've chosen to surround yourself with, because that fast you can choose to not accept them. You can forgive yourself, and in forgiving yourself you forgive others, which is probably the biggest situation going on now, and we have to convey with this situation going on in Ferguson and in other communities. I feel sorry for the Brown family. I would be devastated if it happened to either of my kids. But I also know that bad choices and wrong choices got Mr. Brown in a bad situation. And each choice made after that was an unconscious reaction to the previous bad choices. He could have stopped and realized and said, wow, I'm doing a bad thing, and not walked in the street, or gone back and gave the cigars to the guy, and his whole life would have been changed with an instant realization that that's how easy it is to make the right choice at the right time. And the wrong choices will lead you down that uncertainty of death and destruction and devastation and turmoil. And that's probably a good place to end. especially with tomorrow being Thanksgiving. And I want to thank from the bottom of my heart every serviceman and every first responder that has to work tomorrow and have their day away from their families. I wish them nothing but the best, and I sure hope that the rest of America realizes that our men in blue and our firefighters should be honored and not disrespected as it has been shown with these unconscious zombies in the streets. And the funny part from a white man's point of view, that 90% of the bad riders in the street are white, probably privileged, elite kids who are there for whatever selfish reason. Maybe they want to be on TV, who knows? But they're wrong. Every one of those socialist, communist, Islamic, environmentalist, professional agitators that are there stirring that crowd should be condemned, and they should be pointed out by all the news media, not just Fox, which tries to give a more conservative point of view, but by all the other ones who are vying for commerce in that network war thing. They need to rely more on the truth and the reality that is going on in our world today. So until Sunday, once again, thank you to all our military service, and to you, Godspeed.